All right, guys, let's do a shave. And what we are bringing different today is we're going to use the Personna Israeli Red in a vintage Gillette Tech, just the El Cheapo plain old Tech. It does have a Maggard's handle, stainless handle on it, so it looks a little different than a normal Tech, but the head is the Tech. And then I've got a new soap base. I have never used the Long Rifle Soap Company products, and this is Hunting Lodge, and it's got a decent smell to it. I've heard good things about the performance in general, so I'm expecting okay things. I'm sure it'll be just fine, but let's bring it to you guys, and we'll just see how everything whips up. We're also going to be using the Omega 20102 boar brush. It's been soaking for about half an hour. And as always, boar brushes definitely need that soak time. Minimum, I put to you at about 3 minutes. Got to get those bristles that start off often very stiff. Got to get those to absorb some water. And this is the only brush type that does that to that extent. Badger soaks up a little bit of water, and of course synthetics don't at all. But boars definitely change significantly after they're wet. So this is the Israeli Red. Just says platinum chrome on it. Personna platinum chrome. And this is the American Tech. These are triangle slots, and so we know that is before the war in the 40s. Yep, everything's lining up perfectly. And this is a relatively small puck. I imagine you could brush load out of it, but I'm going to scoop because it's kind of a narrow container. And we'll do that. And in a sense, this is a good test because we'll be able to see how it works with a standard amount of soap. It's very common for me to use a 1/4 teaspoon for my scooping efforts, and so then this will be a good comparison. Holy Cow takes the full 1/4 teaspoon, maybe usually even more. There are some more concentrated soaps that take half of this, 1/8 of a teaspoon. Yeah, nice woodsy, outdoors type scent, foresty. I said woodsy. That covers foresty, doesn't it? Gonna maybe be quick today. I'm shaving on my lunch break, so I'm gonna make myself a quick ham sandwich after this instead of doing something complicated. Yesterday I made homemade mac and cheese. Where you make a roux in your pan with butter, flour, and milk. R-O-U-X, roux. And there we go, got it all smeared in. And then you, it's just the butter and the flour at first. And then you add, what am I reaching for? The brush, I think. The razor's ready to go, yep. And then you add milk to make, and this is kind of how you make gravies. And then after the milk is all integrated, you add shredded cheese. Shake out a lot of the water. So you add the shredded cheese, sharp, whatever you like. The milk kind of smooths it out a little bit, so something sharp is probably advisable. Salt and pepper, all those types of things. And then meanwhile, you're cooking your noodles in the pot with the water. And then when the cheese sauce, basically is what you're making, is ready, you just pour the cheese sauce over the noodles after you've drained them. And there you go, homemade mac and cheese. A lot more healthy for you than the box, I would imagine. And you can customize the cheese. I'm getting something kind of zesty and almost minty, like maybe juniper or something like that. I do smell kind of funky woodiness in there when I get my nose close to it. This brush is one of the ones that's taken a while, like the Stirling boar brush, it's taken a while to get soft, and it's not there yet. We're only on maybe the 24th use, and so that is young for a boar. So no sweat, just got to be patient. I wish I had access, in a sense, to only a few different boar brushes, because then they would grow up quicker. They would get used more instead of me having a large rotation. And so they would get to that soft point a lot quicker. It sure looks like I'm going to have plenty of lather for that 1/4 teaspoon. Lather looks pretty good. Yeah, it's not a strong scent. Now and I don't get that juniper or whatever kind of zestiness is there. I don't get it when I have my nose in the bowl. Must just be the nature of that top note. I get the flatter, dirtier, earthier type notes when I put my nose in the bowl. So we have added just 1 teaspoon of water. No, I believe I've refilled, and so I think I've got 3. Yeah, pretty confident I've refilled. So this is now 4 teaspoons of water. And the macaroni turned out really good. Problem is I've got a ton of it. I used 1/4 pound, 3/4 pound of noodles. Should have known at that point that that was going to be way more than I needed. It's not as predictable as the box, because you know how the box goes, you know how it's going to end up. And while you're experimenting with cheeses and getting the right gravy ratio with the milk and the flour and all that, you might end up with something that's more dry than maybe your kids like, or too wet or something. Look at that lather. It's looking really good. It still feels kind of firm, but let's kind of give it a try here. Meaning, let's pull it up. Look how it's holding together. It's holding on to that big old clod right there. Probably means it needs more water. If this is a soap that needs to be run a little drier than usual, then this might be almost perfect. Some soaps are like that, but I do think I'll go ahead and add 5 teaspoons. I decided to add a whole teaspoon because I'm crazy. I don't think that would over wet the lather, but I could be wrong. And even if I do over wet the lather, it's kind of a good test of a lather. If you get it too wet, does it still work? Does it still perform? Does it provide that slickness and protection that you need? Because straight razor shavers usually want a lather that's a lot wetter than most dry double-edged razor users like. And so if it's a good soap, will take on even more water than you think and still give you a nice performing shave. Sometimes you even might like the slickness more when it's overwatered. Well, it sure looks great. It doesn't look like it's too loose. Let's pull it down and do that same test. And I bet it'll be very different. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. That's very, very different with that 1 teaspoon of water, because I believe I was kind of right on the edge of where I needed to be. And so maybe I either brought it to just the right place or a little over. The shave will tell. Get my face wet. I did shower before today's shave, and so my face has been cleaned. So we won't have any, if there are problems associated with a lather and that, then we won't experience those. Now it's starting off nice. We'll see how it keeps going. I like the scent. It's not big and strong. It's not very in your face. I'd say maybe it's a 4 out of 10. It's strong enough to, I am enjoying it during the shave. That's kind of the purpose in my book, right? It needs to give you something during the shave. I like how the lather's working out so far. It's not dying. You know, it's not all of a sudden there's not some water being released from the brush that is killing it, like sometimes happens with maybe the younger bore brushes. Matter of fact, it might need a little more water. It is not soft. It's scritchy, but it's not scratchy. I might end up with a little bit of irritation if I have to do too much face work. Let's put it that way. If you don't have to do too much, you probably will be fine in terms of brush burn. But if you really have to work it, then you may be kind of paying the price. Yeah, this looks like a really good lather. How does it feel? Yeah, nice slickness, good creaminess. Yeah, and you see that look? That needs more water. For my standards, at least. Let's go ahead and just shave with this as is. Now you see these shapes, these clumps right here? Sometimes that, and they're not moving, sometimes that means that it needs more water. It's got a little bit too much structure to it. Now let's feel it between my fingers here. It's given me good slickness, and it is kind of a buttery kind of slickness. I didn't really see that coming. Hey, I like that. Not a ton of cushion, not a ton of density with it, but I don't really want density. I want slickness. Who cares how dense it is? And it's given me contact slickness to where I know that when I go to rinse my face, it's going to feel really nice. I could add more water to this. Let's go ahead and do that. Now remember, this needs to be kind of a quick shave. Don't get too carried away with the details, trying to get it perfect, right? Yeah, that'll do. Phew. Yes, almost 6 teaspoons of water. We've got tons of lather. So, in terms of the economy perspective, this is a soap that's going to last you a nice long time. People have said it was very soft, almost like a cream, but what I got was not. I don't know if it's age, if it's just sat around, and so it's different. But it was definitely a crope. I definitely needed to spoon it out with a little spoon there. All right, Israeli red with an inexpensive vintage Gillette American-made head. Ooh, that's good. And we're looking at about a day and a half of growth. Ooh. Now that is a good feeling. It is moving through those hairs. I have used some different razors for this blade, and this might be the best one. The only catch could be, is this going to give me kind of some stealth irritation that I'm going to feel when the shave is done or on the last pass. But this is easily moving through my hairs, and this is a blade that's been used about 5 times, 5 or 6. So it's not brand new. There we go, really nice. That moved very nicely through the stubble. And right now I'm taking that excess, kind of rubbing it around, and it feels really good. The slickness here, this is a good soap base. Of course, something else that could happen is that it could maybe not be cutting super closely. Not something that this blade has shown me at all in other razors, but in this one perhaps that could be happening, and so I might not be getting as close of a cut, but that is something that we can see at the end of the shave. Some neat scents. With a name like a long rifle, you probably expect them not to release a whole bunch of rose scents, right? I don't know if they create their scents in-house or if they're just using pre-blends. I know it's a small company, like up north in the US, I think. I'm going with the grain here in my sheath. Usually on my second pass I do a cross grain like this, but I don't think it'll matter. So that's the second pass down, and I definitely noticed a really enjoyable, slick, luxurious type creamy feeling as I was rinsing. So that we continue to add positive things about this soap here. All right, last pass. Face feels pretty slick, pretty smooth already. It's a good sign. And yeah, we've got tons, and we've got some nice gloss on it. So if you, I think in general, you could assume that if you don't have a sheen to it, you could definitely keep adding water. I continue to pick up on that top note, and so maybe it may not be a true top note, because I think most of those probably should have evaporated by now. That kind of juniper, I'm saying juniper, but whatever it is, I could be misidentifying it. But it's a very, I've smelled it in a few other fragrances and a few other soaps. It's not my favorite, but it's not very strong here. It's mixed with some other of those woody things. Let's smell the base, the lather, the wetness, I'm sorry, in the tub here. Not a lot gets to your nose at that point. I don't know if I'm used to it or if it's just mild and kind of earthy. All right. Glad I added more water. Who would have thought you throw that Israeli red, which has been kind of feisty in several razors, throw that into a good old tech, and it tames it nicely. Oh, and this is the third pass, so let me switch directions, and this will help me to get this particular area next to my Adam's apple, but as close as I can get it without going against the grain. Nice. Well, there we go. Here's a good test of the lather. I can do a little touch up right here, but the main test I was talking about is, let's just take my hand over the surface of my skin. See, it's still quite hydrated. I'm not pulling over skin that's kind of dried out already. Very nice. I like it. I got a nice close cut. It's comfortable. I haven't felt any issues with irritation come on late here in the shave. I just have maybe a few tips that have some length to them, just a little tiny bit of length. It's really hard to find them. And so I think it's really pretty good for me. the tech tamed the Israeli red, and that is interesting. I might have to try to find some other mild razors to put this blade in and see if, like the feather blade, see if maybe it excels and works really well in those milder razors. Give that a shot. If I still had my feather ASD2 around, you can believe I would be putting it in that razor for sure, because that one worked with just a few blades, especially the feather, and when it did, it worked very well. Comfortable and a close cut. All right. Well, I tell you what, the hunting lodge, maybe not. Maybe this is a juniper and cedar kind of scent, and so that's why I'm not identifying as negatively with it as juniper as maybe some other scents that I've tried have. Oh, you know what it was? I think it was Spitfire by Phoenix and Bow, I think. It had all these nice leathery notes, but it also had a little bit of juniper in it. And I think that's how I maybe learned to identify the juniper type scent. But there, it was around all these really good notes that I loved. I guess maybe it was just still too strong. Here, it's identifiable, it's the main note, at least kind of from a distance, but it's not strong enough to trigger me, and I still am able to enjoy the soap. But I would call it maybe, instead of hunting lodge, I might think of it more like woody juniper path or something, because we've got some earthy notes, it seems, and some woody notes, it seems, and then the juniper is the main part of what I'm receiving in it. And that can vary per person. You could take this very exact soap and smell a slight variation it's very different to you if you were to describe it as well. 3 passes of soap left over, so that is a nice, generous, economical soap that will return many shaves for its users. I probably should have used 6 teaspoons of water. We used 5.5 today. Good little soap. Now, Tuscany has cypress in it, and that's what I'm going to use for my balm today. Let's see how those agree. I have no idea. It's also got, I think, maybe orchid, and then it's got the cypress, and then some spices. And so let's just see how all those play with the notes in Hunting Lodge. So I kind of didn't expect Long Rifle to be this good in terms of the performance, but it really was. I hope they are able to get a good corner of the market, and especially regionally, you know. I know I've seen them on a few online retailers, not a ton, but on a few, so hopefully they can keep developing their products. Maybe put together some original scents if they're not doing that already. I don't know. I think a lot of soap makers who start out may have a really good soap base, but then the perfumery is just a whole different world than making a good soap base, and so maybe sometimes they will reach out to somebody else for their scents, and as long as they reach out to somebody good, then that's a good thing for everybody. All right, but these guys have got the performance. At least to me, that was really nice. Here we go after the good toweling, and you can see it's still, see how firm it is? It's still holding that shape. This is when I definitely perused through and picked out some of the hairs that have rectangular tops that looked really firm, and I clipped those out. So the Tuscany seems to be working really well with it. Let's sniff the soap tub. Now, oh man, that Tuscany helps me to perceive some of the almost leathery, woody notes that were kind of hidden before. Like musky and leathery, it's what's coming out. I'm able to get now. Pretty cool. Here after the fact, I was reading the container. This is a 3-ounce container. So consider that as you look at the value and the cost if you're interested in snagging one of these guys up. Now, and then while I saw that, I noticed that it says bay rum, tobacco, and leather. at the end, after I smelled the Tuscany, I picked up on kind of those leathery notes, but not really before. Juniper. Could that be part of the bay rum? Maybe a spice in the bay rum is behaving like the juniper. See, the scents are funky, aren't they? In terms of the main notes, the tobacco, it's very faint. So I don't know. You got me, sports fans. I would have been hard pressed. Thanks to the Tuscany, I would have said leather was in there. Sometimes I'm not good at identifying tobacco if it's associated with some other, it can blend too closely with some other things, and that would be on me. Bay rum, though? Well, I tell you what, I'm not a bay rum fan when there's a lot of spices and clove and things like that. And so maybe this is a sweeter kind of bay rum, but I don't really get it. I'm glad that it is a sweeter bay rum. If it was more spicy and stuff, I probably would not have liked it. All right, guys, well, that will do. A pretty good shave. I was really surprised in a really good way by the soap base being so good and by the way the tech handled so nicely and smoothly the Israeli red. Terrific. I don't have any irritation, anything like that. The balm is still kind of absorbing, so I'm still kind of slick. Really pretty good. Hope there's something in here for you guys to help you out with your shaving. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care.